Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am talking to Francesca Royster. She is the author of a new memoir, Choosing Family, a memoir of queer motherhood and Black resistance. Her other books include Black Country Music, Listening for Revolutions, Sounding Like a No-No, Queer Sounds and Eccentric Arts in the Post-Soul Era, and Becoming Cleopatra, the Shifting Image of an Icon. She teaches English at DePaul University in Chicago. Welcome, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm really excited. I really enjoyed this book. So you have this vast range of scholarship behind you where you've written, I'm sure, lectured, taught on all of these different issues. And now you have a memoir on motherhood. So talk to me a little bit about how you got to this place.
Yeah, absolutely. I have wanted to write a memoir for a long time before I became a mother and was really interested in writing about my family's history in Chicago. So that was something that I had done little bits and pieces of. I started making a film about Bronzeville and my great-grandmother's house. But then once I became a mom, the intensity of it and the kind of just the desire to connect with other people as it was happening got me writing about it. And I have this wonderful writers group where everyone is about my age or a little bit older, and they all have adult children. Actually, one member has someone who has kids who are just a little bit older than mine, and it was so helpful just to kind of write and really put my feelings out there and my observations and then connect with other people who had already gone through some of the journey. And then I wanted to write something that, because I'm a nerd, like I'm thinking about all these scholarly books. I'm thinking about queer theory because I teach it. And, I love a lot of the works that I quote in the book or lean on heavily are books that are just incorporated into my whole worldview and life. So it wasn't hard to bring them in for me because they're like, I'm always thinking, Audre Lorde's Zami, a new spelling of my name or whatever, queer futurity. So as I was writing, it was kind of my natural voice to bring in some of these thinkers to kind of frame where I see the ideas connecting. And then when the book was finally done, my editors, my initial agent actually had suggested that I take out those theory quotes and, quote some Toni Morrison because she was worried that it wouldn't be accessible to a wide audience. And so it's like, sure. Okay. So I took it out. We got a contract with Abrams after a while. And the first thing that the editor suggested was, I really feel like there's some great, big ideas in the book and some queer theory. Do you think you could actually, show us the breadcrumbs of, where these ideas might be coming from? And you're thinking, yes, I have a whole draft of it right here.
For those of you who do not write professionally, welcome to a glimpse into what it's like to be a writer. I mean, I was a television writer, a comedy writer, and this is what happens. Take this out. Put it in. Where is it? I miss it. It's too much. Take it out.
Exactly. So, yeah, and, teaching these works like the theory at DePaul, which is, mostly undergraduate, though I do have some graduate students. I'm used to being able to apply some of the thinkers to everyday life and try to explain it in ways that are accessible. So that helped a lot. My teaching helped my writing a lot. And I still had to work on it some to make sure that everybody really got what I was talking about. But I'm glad that it's there because I feel like sometimes the applicability of some of the writers that I'm relying on isn't really talked about. Like, I think it really is. These are really accessible works that can help us think about where we are in the world.
Yeah, I think this book really has something that I love in memoir, especially writing about motherhood, which is it has a tremendous amount of specificity, but there is still a universality to it that allows it to be kind of accessible. And the foundation or sort of the backbone of the book, your memoir, your story, is this idea of queerness, both queerness within your, what I guess I would call nuclear family, yourself, your wife, your adopted daughter, and the sort of historical queerness of generations of your family. Talk about, in terms of the specificity and the universality, how you define. I think a lot of people hear queerness in 2023 and they think that means maybe gayness or being in a same-sex relationship or any sort of relationship outside of heteronormative norms or whatever the term is. And so walk us to that and how that's informed both the specificity of your family and what brought you into writing this book.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question, Margaret. It's funny. We are in a really interesting time. My daughter, who is 10 now and an avid watcher of TikTok, knows so much more in terms of nomenclature and just the ways that people talk about identity. She gave us this quiz on LGBTQIA plus flags, and I totally failed because I only knew a couple. I knew 3 of them. So yeah, it's a really powerful moment where the concept of queerness might be part of many people's vocabularies, especially younger people. But I think you're right that, seeing queer motherhood in most people's minds would only be talking about a sexual or gender identity and, desire choice and things like that. So I'm really thinking about queerness, including that, and really making visible queer desire and sexuality and, trying to live outside of norms of heteronormative life as it's been thought about in history, all that stuff. But I'm also thinking about some of the concepts that are connected to LGBTQIA plus community making, especially chosen family, and that idea of decentering the nuclear family as much as you can, but also connecting, trusting, loving people who are not blood-bound, and just generally thinking of family and the way that what that means in a much wider sense. And there's still a way that home and, sitting at the dining room table and all those other things are still part of the way I'm thinking about chosen family. But it's also really thinking about ways that we trust and make ourselves vulnerable and rely on people who are our friends and who even are sometimes people that we don't know well that we might let in. So that concept, I think, once I started really thinking about queerness that way, I thought, wow, that's really the strategy in my own family of survival. That was how my great-grandmother, who was from New Orleans originally and migrated to Chicago in the teens, I think. That was how she was able to stay in Chicago and to thrive, was that she opened up a boarding house and she took in boarders, which were usually folks who were friends of friends who were also migrating from streams in the South to Chicago. But then, and that kind of helped her pay the mortgage, and kind of when the bank was trying to take away the house, she was able to get it back. She and my great-grandfather. And it also became a place, a meeting place. She would have her women's club meetings there. And it was also, she also took in my mother when my grandmother divorced and had to go work, long hours and couldn't take care of my mom. So for a lot of my mom's childhood, she lived in this boarding house. So also my uncles, when their marriages broke up, would come back and like live in the house too. And it became this way station when people were, kind of making life pivots or changes or were in crisis. So that way of kind of teaming up, sometimes outside of normal, or what's considered normal family boundaries, was something that I saw in my own family and that, in the different generations. And I actually think is part of a practice that is part of African American history and life and, with foundations in family survival, from slavery onward, but also like the concept of cousins and play cousins and other interconnections, I think is even older than that. But often this is an idea that is seen as a problem, like it's seen as outside of the norm, or it's seen as excessive or a sign that, the Black family is in trouble. So part of my desire in thinking about Black families as queer, which is really kind of embracing queerness as, a resistant spirit that is also, a positive in my view, and to kind of reclaim these ways of surviving and loving and really seeing it as a way to create a world of love, no matter what else is going on, outside of your family and outside of, in terms of structures of racism or in terms of poverty and these things. It's a tool and a way to connect.
I'm talking to Francesca Royster, the author of Choosing Family, a memoir of queer motherhood and Black resistance, and we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
So, Francesca, before the break, we were talking about the boarding house that your great-grandmother ran and this idea of coming together as family. And I'm going to read this quote from your book. To me, Seeley's house reflected the spirit of queer family in the fluid shape of its membership and the permeability of its borders, stretching always in the face of political and economic troubles as well as troubles of the heart. And this sort of gets to the idea that we were just speaking about before the break. Is this a reflection that led you to create the family that you are now a part of? Or is it something that you realized in reflection after adopting your daughter? When did this idea of family transform in your mind?
I think it was definitely simultaneous with first the decision and then the process, because one of the things that I really reflected on for myself was, what were some of my fears around becoming a parent and also getting married, like in an official way. And at the time I was thinking about it, I couldn't officially get married to my partner, Annie, but I was very sure that she and I were life partners. But one of the fears is really that feeling of claustrophobia, of losing your identity, and kind of like feeling like pleasure and connection and all these things would kind of just get kind of narrowed down, and that it would feel like a lot of pressure. So the idea of this history of expanded and queer family gave me a different way of thinking about what our future could be. And then because the process of adoption was kind of, emotionally challenging, it took us 9 months of training, and then we were waiting, and for a little while, it looked like it wasn't going to happen. And so this concept of queer family also, kind of pushed Annie and I both to push outside of our insularity and depending on each other only to really connect and share things with the other friends in our community. And then when Cece came, we're also we're kind of older, as I write about.
We're big fans of older parents on this podcast. So we call ourselves Oldie Locks. Come on in. The water's warm. We're doing it too. You say at some point, I'll go back and quote you because it really stuck out to me. This is a story about beginning motherhood in the second half of our lives. So it's about sore backs and knees, about making mistakes when we thought we should know better, and the unspoken worry that we might not live to see our grandchildren. But it's also a story of second chances and rebirths. And it really resonated with me, feeling both of those things and all of those things and also the journey to feeling like we are moving into a realm, motherhood, kind of capital M, that everybody is doing in this sort of televised 1950s white-centric way that may not accept us, but that will we accept ourselves in this new role is another part of it. And I feel like you capture both of those things, that looking for the acceptance in this new space, but also will I be able to recognize myself within this structure that doesn't seem to fit my concept of myself?
Absolutely. I mean, can be a very all-consuming role. And, I feel like you're right that there's this feeling of an audience and also just a historical precedent of what being a good mother is supposed to be. So, how do you find balance? I was listening to your earlier podcast with the great doctor who wrote a book on, or has a podcast on, balance and motherhood. Amber Thornton, she was really wonderful. But especially, when as someone who has lived a life and kind of created an identity, this might be relatable for all women, but, the fear of losing that is real. And just figuring out also how to create a family environment and nurturing relationship that is different, that might give a chance to reinvent some of the rituals and ways of thinking about who my daughter is going to be, or a person, I'll just say, that's expandable. So as I was thinking about this role of motherhood, I was really thinking about that pressure, but also like this desire potentially to change with the times and to help nurture this young person to be who she wants to be, or they, and just give room for the possibilities of a world that I don't even anticipate yet. So I think Annie and I were both really invested in thinking about motherhood in new ways. And for a long time, Annie actually didn't want to be called mom. She was trying to come up with something else, but we sort of let Cece take the lead. And so we're Mama Annie and Mama Franny. So that's where we are. Sometimes we're just Annie and Franny.
There's a really interesting, thought-provoking sort of theme of choice and non-choice in your journey to motherhood. You talk about the adoption process, this 9 months of training, and that friends are saying to you, I think everyone should do this. I mean, so many people become parents by surprise or through tremendous amount of plannings, and you arrive at this different place. And what role do you feel like the amount of choice that went into your journey to motherhood, how is it reflected in the book and how you talk about, this process of becoming a mom?
Yeah, thank you. Well, just the process of making a decision, setting intentions, reflecting on the past, like that is all like a kind of psychic process that we were really privileged to have. And I think that lots of parents might ask some of those deeper questions, but you might have to wait until, your kid is a teenager, or, whenever there's breathing room. There's never really breathing room, once you're a parent, you're in it. But so I do think that was a really important part of what we were doing. And I think the pace of becoming a parent had this like kind of hurry up and then slow down quality where we were rushing, a lot to set things up, buying a house. We eventually got civil unionized because we still couldn't get married yet, but we were instructed that it's important to have everything in place legally in terms of our connection and our household. So, all of those things are things that I feel like we had choice because we were middle class and because we had an idea and kind of acted on it versus like waking up and going, oh shit, what do I do? So I do think that that's an aspect there. But, adoption is also like reckoning with the limited choices of the other half of the equation, which is the birth family and their solutions. And we kind of chose the adoption agency that really focused on an open adoption because we're really aware of, just from our reading, but also from friends who had chosen adoption plans for their kids, like just thinking about what it feels like and the ways that sometimes also, like it's the state taking away your child depending on what situation you're in. And we wanted to, as much as possible, to have space to acknowledge that loss of that family and that maybe this is a choice among unpleasant choices, which I absolutely think is true. And like maybe the hardest part of that is really helping Cece to understand that too, that she is both a child who has been adopted by two women who were very, very committed to the process of having her and are joyous, and really a whole community that's ecstatic that she's around. But she's also part of a birth family that, who we want to have in our lives, but also isn't in our lives right now. And who, lost a member, or it might feel like that right now at least. And that for her as, a daughter, she also has to reckon with that too, that there's some grieving that is always a part of adoption that has to do with, the people who gave you life and kind of carried her to term. And so especially early on when we were talking to Cece about her birth mom, we really wanted to emphasize that she took such good care of her, the whole time that she was pregnant, and that she, maybe she talked to her because Cece, because of the age that she's adopted, Cece doesn't really have a memory of her birth mother, but we just wanted her to have this sense of being cared and nurtured before we adopted her. So all of that, I think, is just reflecting on the ways that sometimes our ability to have access to adoption is also a reflection of the fact that not everyone who wants to mother has the economic support or the emotional support that they might need, to raise the families that they want. And so I didn't want to erase that, even though I wanted to make central this, our joy and this new way of thinking about mothering. I do also believe that it is important for folks who choose adoption to know that, that is a caring act and that it's often not framed that way in our culture. It's often framed in the language of abandonment. But I think that this was a really selfless act on the behalf of Cece's mom to think about her future and to, think about her own limits. And even though, again, I feel like it's a choice among bad choices sometimes, or choices that one wouldn't want to take, just a difficult set of choices, I do have faith that it was a good decision. And I really hope that we someday, or Cece someday, can have a relationship with her, in whatever terms are going to work for her. But
we're talking to Francesca Royster, who is the author of the new memoir, Choosing Family, a memoir of queer motherhood and Black resistance. And we'll be right back.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
So before the break, we were talking a little bit about the concept of joy. I wanted to quote from the book where you quote Black queer scholar and activist Lamar Jarrell Bruce, who writes, "For far too long, I regarded joy and peace of mind as glinting treasures propped on some distant and potentially ever receding horizon toward which I dutifully march or trudge with no assurance of arrival. Now, rather than prop joy on some remote mountain cliff, I find and snatch it where I tread. I cram it in my pockets, fill my mouth with it, cradle it in my arms, wrap it around my shoulders, secrete it in my sweat, carry it with me. It's surprisingly light stuff." I wrote this quote down and I have it on my wall. You're speaking about it in this section of the book, specifically as an African-American woman. Can you talk a little bit about this section of your book and what led you to include this beautiful quote?
Thank you. I love that quote too. I have it right there.
We have it on our two desks.
I think that there's something very political about embracing joy as an African-American person and as a queer person. And some of that joy is attached to also taking into account and taking in suffering, at the same time, and violence. But I think giving space to joy is something that was a narrative that I had to reach a little bit further back to find, because there is a way that in that, making a way out of no way kind of sense of struggle of, my grandparents, my parents, my great-grandparents. Sometimes the fact of the struggle can overtake the commitment to joy. So when I was writing about them and really remembering them and thinking about what I wanted in a family, I really tried to remember some of those joyful moments and to think about the deliberate choices that were about pleasure and about food and connection. My grandmother, who was a janitor and worked incredibly hard and raised 6 kids with not a lot of money, loved baking experimental foods and watching Julia Child and attempting some of her recipes. She loved crocheting things. And I remember once she made us a poncho my sister and I, ponchos out of those plastic 6-pack holders. I was this is very scratchy, but it's really cool. And she had colorful yarn kind of everywhere. So I think that joy is something that is often denied, and it's connected to the dehumanizing structures in our society. And so it really, it doesn't take necessarily money and privilege to embrace joy, because I think that I can see in my kind of family that struggled the most these moments of connection and joy. But for me, in our household, it's really about, taking pleasure and taking time in our everyday realities. My daughter loves animals, and we have currently 2 dogs, 2 frogs, and a fish. And we help her take care of them. And they're just a really important place to quiet down and connect. Or we go visit friends. We do pop calls sometimes on Saturday to visit friends and hang out on the porch if it's not really cold, which it is right now. Or, just thinking about ways that we can take our time to connect with the people that we love on an everyday basis, and to also create for the future. I find writing is my way also of embracing joy, because writing with a faith that there are people who are going to be nodding, and that, maybe there's a way that my writing can change minds, even if it doesn't always resonate with everybody. But it's sort of feeding those good faith acts in that, that the future is possible and that we can shape the future.
And you talk, one thing I'm interested in, this book is tremendous amounts of scholarship and talking about legacy and the concepts and resonance through time. And now they funnel towards an actual human child. And I'm always interested in this as a parent and someone who talks to a tremendous amount of people who write about parenting. How do you find that playing out in your household in terms of values you want to impart, pieces of legacy you want to carry forward? How do you balance it against actual human child who the outcomes of can be very up in the air? It can be very difficult for us. I always say I expected to get a lump of clay to shape, and I got a human baby, which was very surprising to me. How do you find that balance?
Yeah, well, it is those surprises are definitely part of the joy, and part of what I'm learning is to kind of release or at least treat a little bit more lightly some of those intentions that got me here a little bit. But I remember when Cece was still a toddler and she couldn't really talk yet, and I just couldn't wait to talk to her. And I was just sure I knew what her voice would be. And her voice, once she really started speaking and having opinions, it's even better than I imagined. So I feel she's always surprising me. She's often schooling me on things. And she's just a really beautiful combination of bold and shy. And she is her own self. And it's just so expansive to kind of have this real person in your midst who's always opening up new doors and getting you to think about things differently. But one of the ways that I remember having to kind of pause was we had this whole anti-Barbie rule, anti-Disney, anti-Barbie rule.
We had an anti-Barbie rule in my house, so that part of the book definitely stuck out to me.
Yeah. And I feel those images of like femininity and of whiteness, like those were real pressures that Cece felt. It wasn't just a theoretical problem of like, you know, images of self-esteem and beauty that I kind of thought of in the abstract, but they really were. It really had to do with like how she was interfacing with the kids in her mostly white preschool, or things that people were saying to her, or just like assumptions about her body as it moved in the world. So one of the hard lessons was, okay, how do I take this theoretical analysis of, you know, white supremacy and sexism and make a space for this person who's trying to figure out who she is and live in the world, like live in the world as a kid, like in this classroom that I don't have to be in every day, and who is seeking a language of connection with the people around her. So we definitely kind of told her, we have talked about like things that we have trouble with some of the like kind of mainstream culture of princesses, or then we just leave it alone. And it's been very hard just to not keep talking and lecturing. And, you know, as a teacher, I have the gift of the lecturer sometimes. So just giving her space to make her own choices in and of itself has been hard. And to share history and share like struggle is also, and knowing how much to share is also, you know, kind of an ongoing lesson.
Balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
You finished the book with Audre Lorde, her poem For Each of You. Do not let your head deny your hands any memory of what passes through them, nor your eyes, nor your heart. And you say, I think she means that memory and story can sustain us, even when we lose the people we love, which you talk about at length in the book, losing people from previous generations, even when we find ourselves alone or confused or wrong or floating without direction. And by sharing our stories, we are making home. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful. It's sort of just what you were saying, is that you have confidence that by sharing your stories with your daughter, like that's the legacy that you're passing on, rather than, but it does take some confidence to say, by sharing the stories, you will understand this legacy, but I can't just stand over you and lecture you 24 hours a day because I know it's really important.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. And, you know, also her stories and her view of things are kind of part of the legacy as well, and really giving her space. I think she's at this point like a really great storyteller and writer, but she hates writing things down. And, you know, like I'm just like, of course I want to like, I've given her a million journals and, you know, I have this vision of, you know, this potential person who could carry on the role of storyteller of the family, but she might do that in her own way. So yeah, it's always a learning process. But I was thinking about one of the chapters that I write about, which is after the Orlando Pulse shootings. We went to a barbecue with one of our chosen family members, really a dear friend, Layla. And I think we were all holding a lot of upset, but we weren't saying it to Cece because she was 4 and we weren't really explaining ourselves. But Cece had this, or has developed this strategy of listening to stories and asking for stories that are hard. And I think she calls them her Heard Her Sick stories. And tell me a Heard Her Sick story. So I think there is a way that she understands the power of stories to look at things that are difficult, but also to remind yourself of the ways that we can get through. So I think sometimes that process of telling stories activates the best part of ourselves and our just general hope, sense of hope and sense of like, okay, you and I are going to figure this out. And I think she already implicitly understands that, which is, you know, pretty cool.
That's fantastic. I really loved this book, Choosing Family, a memoir of queer motherhood and Black resistance. I really, really recommend it. Francesca, tell our listeners where they can find more of your writing and where they can find the book.
Thank you. God, that's a good question. Well, they can definitely find the book at the website of Abrams Books, abramsbooks.com. And my writing is available all over the place, like in Bookshop and Powell's and all kinds of places like that. I don't currently have a website, but you can always find me and find connections to my work at the DePaul English website. You can find me on Instagram at Royster Francesca and on Facebook.
Awesome. And we will link to all of those places in our show notes, including all of Francesca's writings. And Francesca, thanks so much. This was a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I really appreciate it too. Thanks.
Stitch Fix. Shopping is hard. Let's talk about it.
I don't have time to shop for clothes.
I have to buy everything in 3 sizes to find one that fits. They know me at the post office.
Workout wear is my only wear.
Stitch Fix makes shopping easy. Just show your size, style, and budget, and your stylist sends personalized looks right to your door. No subscription required, plus free shipping and returns.
Oh, wow. That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Take your style quiz today at stitchfix.com.